Hi, friends. Welcome to the Pine River Library story time. This story time is going to be all about pumpkins. Our first story is Too Many Pumpkins by Linda White. Every year at springtime, Rebecca Estelle planted just enough seeds in her garden to grow vegetables for the long winter. She planted carrots and beans, tomatoes and peas, corn and rutabagas. She grew a little bit of everything except pumpkins. Rebecca Estelle hated pumpkins. When she was a little girl, money had been scarce. For an entire month, all there had been to eat were pumpkins. Baked pumpkins, steamed pumpkins, boiled pumpkins, stewed pumpkins, mashed pumpkins, rotten pumpkins, breakfast pumpkins, lunch pumpkins, dinner pumpkins, enough pumpkins. When things finally improved and there was more money to buy food, Rebecca Estelle decided she would never eat pumpkin again, or even look at one. Not ever. And she didn't. Until one autumn day, long after Rebecca Estelle's hair had turned snowy white, she was raking leaves that fell each fall from her black walnut tree, and her cat Esmeralda was scattering them just as quickly as she raked them. All of a sudden, the pumpkin truck passed by. Oh, she heard it coming, and she knew what it was. It rumbled by at harvest time each year. She turned her back and concentrated on picking up the last fallen leaf. She managed to ignore the truck until splat! An enormous pumpkin tumbled off the truck and smashed into slimy orange smithereens all over the edge of her yard. "Come back here and get this pumpkin!" she yelled, but the driver sped away. Oh, what a mess of pumpkin! "Well, I won't touch it," Rebecca Estelle insisted, getting her shovel from the barn. "And I won't look at it," she added as she shoveled dirt on top of the pumpkin pieces. "I wouldn't think about the pumpkin ever again," she declared. And she didn't. Until spring, when Rebecca Estelle was admiring the new sprouts in her garden. She noticed Esmeralda playing with some big green leaves growing at the edge of the yard. "How curious," she said, going over to inspect them. "I didn't plant anything there." Then Rebecca Estelle remembered the pumpkin truck and the slimy pumpkin mess. "Pumpkins!" she cried out in disgust. "Come out of there, Esmeralda. I will not water those plants. I will not tend to them. I will ignore them and they will die." She picked up Esmeralda and stomped inside. But a week later, when Rebecca Estelle peered out her windows, she saw that the vines had grown. She tramped to the barn, got her garden tools, and went to work on the pumpkin vines. She cut and dug until not one was left growing. "There, now there will be no pumpkins," she smiled, and went back inside. But the next week, when she was weeding the garden, she noticed that the pumpkin vines had grown back. Rebecca Estelle marched inside and snapped the curtain shut. The only thing to do is ignore them. They won't grow if I don't take care of them. So, rain or shine, all spring and summer, she never looked out the front window. She used only the back door and never even glanced towards the vine. Neither did Esmeralda. Rebecca Estelle ignored the vine so well that in time she forgot why she wasn't using the front door. Until one autumn day when she and Esmeralda went to rake the leaves that fell from the black walnut tree each fall in front of the house. Pumpkins! Rebecca Estelle shrieked. Pumpkin vines had twined under the bushes, over the bird bath, through the porch rails, onto the rocking chair. The entire yard was a sea of plump, round pumpkins. Rebecca Estelle could no longer ignore them. She plopped down on the pumpkin nearest her, putting her hands over her face. What will I ever do, Esmeralda? How will I get rid of this many pumpkins? She thought, and she thought. Her mind went back to all the pumpkins she had eaten as a young girl, when pumpkins were the only food her family had. Well, we can't let them stay here, she told Esmeralda. Some people might need these pumpkins, and I suppose there are folks crazy enough to like 'em. We'll give them away. She marched off to get her wheelbarrow. Rebecca Estelle struggled to lift the first pumpkin, and then the second, and then the third. She huffed and she puffed as she wheeled the loaded wheelbarrow onto the lane. I'm too tired to deliver these heavy pumpkins now, Rebecca Estelle grumbled. She mopped her brow with her apron and wondered what to do next. Perhaps if I make them into pies, they will be easier to deliver. Such a nuisance. So she went to work. She scooped the slimy seeds out of the pumpkins and cut away the shells. After she boiled the pumpkin meat, she mixed it with eggs, milk, sugar, flour, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves to make rich pumpkin pies. Then Rebecca Estelle made pumpkin tarts, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin cakes, pumpkin bread, pumpkin pudding, pumpkin cookies, until pumpkin dishes spilled out of every cupboard, drawer, cubbyhole, and the seeds were a mountain in the corner of the kitchen. Well, that's the first batch, Rebecca Estelle said, dusting her floury hands. Now to deliver them. She put the wheelbarrow back outside the kitchen door, then loaded it up with pumpkin treats. When it was full, just the thought of delivering all those pumpkin dishes made Rebecca Estelle tired. If only people could come and get them, she said. Then she had an idea. Rebecca Estelle whirled around and hurried back into the house for a kitchen knife. This should get people to come, she cried. She took her knife and sat in the middle of the pumpkin patch. She carved a smiling face on a nice round pumpkin, a scary snaggletooth face on a tall, thin pumpkin, and boo on a short, squat pumpkin. She was so busy carving pumpkins, she hardly noticed how dark it was getting. When she could no longer see, she went to the shelf on the back porch and got a sack of candles she kept for emergencies. If this doesn't get people to come here, we'll have to deliver 'em ourselves, she muttered to Esmeralda. Look at all the pumpkins she carved. So many creative faces. Rebecca Estelle peered into the darkness for a long time. She didn't see anything. Still, she watched. Until, finally, she saw a light, faint at first, then brighter Then more lights bobbing through the night. "Here they come!" she shouted. "Esmeralda, let's heat up some apple cider." Young and old, everyone in town came. "Rebecca, Estelle, we thought you hated pumpkins," they said. "We saw your jack-o'-lanterns from the end of the road and came for a closer look." "I was hoping you would," said Rebecca Estelle. "Where did you ever find all these pumpkins?" people asked. "I came by them quite by accident," Rebecca Estelle said, smiling. "Would you like some pumpkin pie? There's plenty." She winked at Esmeralda. Everybody enjoyed the pumpkin pie and cider and had a good time. So did Rebecca Estelle. And then they were ready to go home. She made each carry a jack-o'-lantern, a bag of seeds for roasting, and a pumpkin treat. Rebecca Estelle gave away everything that reminded her of the pumpkins she had always hated, until all that remained was a handful of seeds. Those she tucked snugly into her pocket where they would be safe until planting time next spring. Sounds like Rebecca Estelle started to like pumpkins again. Here's a little poem about 5 little pumpkins. 5 little pumpkins sitting on a fence. The first one said, "Ooh, it's getting late." The second one said, "There are witches in the air." The third one said, "But we don't care." The fourth one said, "Let's run, let's run." The fifth one said, "Isn't Halloween fun?" Then ooh went the wind, and out went the lights, and the 5 little pumpkins rolled out of sight. Our next story will be Flat Stanley and the Missing Pumpkins. Stanley Lambchop lived with his mother, his father, and his little brother Arthur. Stanley was 4 feet tall and about a foot wide and a half inch thick. He had been flat ever since a bulletin board fell on him. "Ow, your flat elbow's so pointy," said Arthur. Stanley and Arthur were squashed in the back seat of the car. "Sorry," Stanley said. He folded himself up like a taco so his elbow wouldn't poke Arthur. "Better?" he asked. "Better," said Arthur. The boys were on their way to their cousin Billy's farm. "I envy you," Mrs. Lambchop said. "2 weeks of fresh air and the country fair." "I can't wait to see Billy," said Arthur. "And Aunt Sue and Uncle Bob," said Stanley. Aunt Sue was always baking pies to fatten him up. "I'm not flat, I'm not skinny," he'd tell her. It didn't seem to matter. The Lambchops pulled up to a big red farmhouse. "Billy!" yelled Arthur. "Arthur!" yelled Billy. They took off together. "Don't get into trouble," Mrs. Lambchop called after them. Stanley said goodbye to his parents. Uncle Bob helped with the bags. "Ready for some chores?" Uncle Bob asked. "You bet," Stanley said. Stanley loved doing farm chores. He was good at it, too. He could slide his flat hands under the hens to collect their eggs. They didn't mind a bit. Stanley could slip his flat body between rows to get every ear of corn. "Best picker around," said Uncle Bob. And when Uncle Bob needed to unload hay bales from his truck, Stanley made the perfect ramp. "You're mighty helpful, Stanley," Uncle Bob said one night at dinner. "But you are so thin," said Aunt Sue. "Even with all my good cooking, You must eat another slice of pie. After dessert, Stanley went with Uncle Bob to fix a scarecrow in the pumpkin patch. This scarecrow does a fine job of scaring off the birds, Uncle Bob said. Too bad it can't scare off thieves. Someone's been taking my pumpkins. That's awful, said Stanley, and right before the county fair. Oh, I never show my pumpkins at the fair, Uncle Bob said. Gosh, no, I just don't like my pumpkins disappearing. Hand me the nails over there, please. Stanley passed Uncle Bob some nails. Uncle Bob fixed the scarecrow's shoulder. I've tried standing guard at night, but the thieves just wait until I go home, he said. Stanley looked at the scarecrow's skinny wooden arm. Then he looked at his own flat one. Uncle Bob, I have a plan. That night, the moon lit the sky. Stanley stood still, trying not to scratch, and it was hard since his sleeves and pants were stuffed with straw. Stanley was about to give in and scratch when he saw something. Two flashlights bobbing in the dark. This way, a voice whispered, and the lights grew closer. Stanley held his breath. Then someone bumped right into him. Ow! This scarecrow's elbow is so pointy, said the thief. Gotcha! Stanley yelled, and then he snatched the flashlight and shone it in the thieves' faces. What on earth? Stanley said. Arthur and Billy? Why are you stealing pumpkins? It's a surprise for Uncle Bob, Arthur said. Some surprise, said Stanley. No, really, said Billy. The fair's tomorrow. Dad's too shy to take his pumpkins, but I know he could win a prize. Arthur's helping me find good ones. We're going to show them at the fair. Stanley couldn't help but keep smiling. That really is a good surprise. How can I help? Well, there's one thing you can do, said Arthur, and they used Stanley as a ramp to load the pumpkins in the truck. Uncle Bob found Stanley the next day. Did the thieves show up last night? Oh, yes, said Stanley. Come see. What on earth? Uncle Bob said. The boys quickly explained the plan. Arthur and I will handle everything. You can just watch, said Billy. What do you say, Dad? Well, gosh, said Uncle Bob. It looks like my pumpkins are going to the fair. That afternoon they all celebrated Uncle Bob's first ever blue ribbon. Uncle Bob couldn't stop grinning. This is so exciting. Thank you, boys. I know just the thing to do with this prize-winning pumpkin, said Aunt Sue. Make a prize-winning pie. Stanley, you must eat another slice. Nobody was stealing his pumpkins. They were just going to enter him in the fair for Bob. Our final book for story time is We're Going on a Pumpkin Hunt. We're going on a pumpkin hunt. We're gonna find a big one. What a beautiful night. We're not scared. Uh-oh. Cats. Watchful green-eyed cats. Can't go over them. Can't go under them. Can't go around them. Gotta go through them. Meow, meow. We're going on a pumpkin hunt. We're gonna find a big one. What a beautiful night. We're not scared. Uh-oh. Cobwebs. Sticky spider cobwebs. Can't go over them. Can't go under them. Can't go around them. Gotta go through them. Ooh, ooh. Sticky spider webs. We're going on a pumpkin hunt. We're gonna find a big one. What a beautiful night. We're not scared. Uh-oh. Bats! Flying, flapping bats! Can't go over them, can't go under them, and can't go through them. Gotta go through them. But, oh, all the bats flying around our heads. We're going on a pumpkin hunt. We're gonna find a big one. What a beautiful night. We're not scared. Uh-oh. A house? An old, dark, spooky house. Can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it. Gotta go through it. Oh, gotta go through the sneaky, creaky old house. We're going on a pumpkin hunt. We're gonna find a big one. What a beautiful night. We're not scared. Oh no, what's that? A ghost? Let's go. Back through the house, back through the bats, back through the cobwebs, and back through the cats, all the way back. Wait, what's that? It's a pumpkin. Trick or treat. That's the end of our story time for this week. We really hope you enjoyed our story time about pumpkins. Next week, we will have a special Halloween story time. See you then. Bye-bye.